Hello, I'm Andrew Lawrence King, and this is another installment in my video diary as composer in residence at the Arvo Pärt Centre, where I'm creating the libretto and writing the music for a new Baroque opera, The Play of Music and Time, an explorer's guide to early opera. The work of creation for an artist is embedded in time. So as I'm writing this piece for children, we are in a time of war. And so my flower pot for today, my creative activity to occupy the conscious part of my brain while the subconscious part works on the deeper questions of this opera I'm trying to create. My flower pot for today was to write a short piece of music based on the Ukrainian national anthem. I'll play it on Sunday. And my intellectual work on today's project was very philosophical. I did quite a lot of reading of and reading about Dante's Inferno, starting off with his ideas about time, but going into other questions as well. And I was reading in the library rather than in my creativity room here at the centre, sitting in the library surrounded by books and by study scores of Arvo's works. I read a little bit about the history of the Orthodox chapel that's at the centre of the centre. And I followed that up with reading some more about Aristotle's views on time. So a lot of profound ideas, a lot of complex philosophical ideas, and I just spent a few hours working on them. These are ideas that have gripped some of the best minds of all humanity for centuries. So I'm not going to pretend that I've found all the answers in a couple of hours of reading. These are very complex ideas that don't immediately seem to be reducible or communicable to the scope of a children's opera. And maybe here we come to the difference between my two model works that are so different, each excellent in its own way. Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf, which I've talked and thought rather more about, and Benjamin Britten's Young Person's Guide. Today was a more Young Person's Guide kind of day. The Young Person's Guide is a very complex piece of music. It ends with a double fugue. Most young persons who listen to it are not going to be able to analyze, to appreciate intellectually all that structure, that double fugue. Yet the music definitely has a surface appeal. You might not understand it, but you can enjoy the noise it makes. And perhaps for good music, one never understands it. There's always something more to find. Perhaps this is the appeal for many people in the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. And when we think of the music of Bach, many people find a very intense spirituality in the pieces for unaccompanied violin. We often hear them played in a very special venue, perhaps a venue with a rich acoustic. I've myself heard them in the chapel of King's College, Cambridge. An amazing building, a building which contradicts most of what we understand about the rules. Just to put it really simply, there's a traditional lecture in Cambridge where a structural engineer proves that this building cannot actually stay up, but it's there. When we listen to the unaccompanied violin partitas, the player cannot play everything which is intended by Bach, because Bach is writing polyphony which can be suggested, not actually played on a violin. So the music is necessarily incomplete as sound, and a rich acoustic and the rich associations of a special building help the listener round out what is actually happening, what is actually being heard, with their own imagination. But that rounding out is never a complete understanding, and perhaps that's what draws us to this music, that we've always got something more to find out. And yet at the same time, those partitas, they're what we would call dance suites. Underneath this polyphony, underneath this technical complexity in composition and in execution for the performer, underneath all this, there's something very simple, and the joy of a dance. And there, in a good performance, should be some surface attraction, something delightful that we can enjoy without having to understand it, without being able to understand it. And in that sense, perhaps we can all enjoy music, approach music best as children when we don't understand it. I'm not sure if I'm making sense anymore, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't think this deep and beautiful stuff is too much for children. It's too much for any of us, but children should be allowed a glimpse of it. And it should be fun.